I remember the metallic taste of blood in my mouth when I first tore through 17 heretics in 9 seconds. My name is Operative Designation Apex-Seven, formerly known as Jonathan of House Wick, and I am what the Officio Assassinorum calls their finest mistake. They gave me the neural shunts, the adrenal glands, the synthetic muscle fibers, and the combat stims that should have burned out my humanity completely. You think that makes me a mindless weapon, a screaming whirlwind of blades and bullets without conscience or memory, but you don't know what I've seen. They took everything from me, my past, my love, my very soul, and forged me into an Eversor assassin. But somewhere in the chemically induced rage, behind the neuro gauntlets and execution needles, a fragment of the man I still remember. And that fragment, it wants revenge. Not the mindless slaughter they programmed me for, but precise, calculated, personal revenge. This is the story of how John Wick became the Imperium's deadliest hunter, and what happened when his two natures collided. Chapter 1. The Continental. Before I became a weapon, I was a craftsman. The upper spire of Hive Tertius stretched toward Terra's polluted sky like a golden needle, and within its highest reaches existed a world most Imperial citizens never knew. The Continental, that's what we called it, though its official designation was the Sanctioned Commerce Guild of Professional Services. It sounds bureaucratic because that's what the administratum required, but everyone who mattered knew the truth. We were killers, precision instruments of death who operated in the shadows between the Arbites and the Inquisition, serving those with enough wealth or power to require problems solved quietly. I had been part of that world for 23 years. My quarters overlooked the southern approach, where the morning sun, what little penetrated Terra's industrial haze, painted the neighboring spires in shades of rust and gold. The room was modest by noble standards, but palatial compared to the lower Hive. Real wood furniture imported from an agri-world, a bed with actual fabric sheets, and walls thick enough that I couldn't hear my neighbors breathing. Luxury was silence. Privacy was worth more than gold-pressed latinum. The knock came at precisely 6:47. I knew because punctuality was survival in our profession. Jonathan. The voice belonged to Marcus, my handler and the closest thing I had to a friend in this life. Winston requires your presence. I dressed in my working clothes, a long coat of ballistic weave that could stop a lasgun shot at 20 paces, boots with reinforced toes that had crushed more than one throat, and the twin bolt pistols I'd customized myself. Modified for silence, these weren't the roaring hand cannons Space Marines wielded. Mine whispered death with needle-thin bolts that expanded only after penetration. Clean, efficient, professional. The Continental's main hall stretched 300 meters, its vaulted ceiling decorated with murals depicting the Emperor's conquest. Not the sanitized propaganda the Ministorum distributed, but the real history. The bloody work that built an empire. Assassins, saboteurs, and shadow operatives featured prominently. Our patrons appreciated the honesty. Winston stood at his usual position behind the obsidian bar, polishing a crystal glass that probably cost more than most families earned in a year. He was old, genuinely old, not rejuvenate old, with silver hair and eyes that had witnessed the fall of entire dynasties. Some whispered he'd served during the Great Crusade itself, though that would make him impossibly ancient. I'd learned not to ask questions about Winston's past. Jonathan. He set down the glass with the precise control of a man who never wasted movement. I have a proposal that I suspect will interest you. I approached the bar, noting the 3 other patrons scattered throughout the hall. Assassins, all of them. I recognized Cassian near the eastern colonnade and Sophia by the southern exit. Professional courtesy meant we acknowledged each other with subtle nods, but maintained operational distance. Today's ally could be tomorrow's target. I'm considering retirement, I said. The words felt strange in my mouth, like speaking a foreign language. Winston's eyebrow rose fractionally, his equivalent of shocked surprise. After 23 years, you wish to leave the life? May I ask what precipitated this revelation? Her name is Helen. The name carried weight. In our world, personal connections were vulnerabilities, pressure points that enemies exploited. But Helen was different. She worked in the Administratum's Cultural Preservation Division, cataloguing ancient texts and artwork the Imperium had deemed worth saving. She knew nothing of my profession, believed I was a commercial trader dealing in rare goods. It wasn't entirely a lie. Death was the rarest commodity I traded. I see. Winston poured 2 glasses of Amasec, the real stuff distilled on Cadia before that world fell. Love is a curious thing, Jonathan. It makes us human again, reminds us why we do the terrible things we do. But in our profession, humanity is a liability. Then I'll shed the liability. I accepted the glass. One last job, something clean, then I'm done. Winston studied me with those ancient eyes. There are no clean jobs, my friend. You know this. Every contract leaves traces, creates ripples. The Officio Assassinorum has been making inquiries about independent operators. The High Lords grow nervous when killers operate outside their direct control. The Officio Assassinorum. Even saying the name felt dangerous, like invoking a demon. They were the Imperium's official death dealers, the Vindicare snipers who could kill from 5 kilometers away, the Kaleidus shapeshifters who wore their victims' faces, the Colexus anti-psyker blanks who made reality scream, and worst of all, the Eversor combat drug-fueled murder machines who carved through entire compounds in minutes. Compared to them, we were amateurs playing at assassination. They won't find anything, I assured him. I've been careful. Careful. Winston smiled without humor. Jonathan, you've eliminated 473 targets in your career. Every single kill was perfect. No witnesses, no evidence, no complications. That level of consistency isn't careful. It's artistry. And art attracts attention. 473. I'd never actually counted. Each had been necessary. Each had been paid for. Each had been someone who the Imperium, or at least some powerful faction within it, wanted removed. Heretics mostly. Chaos cultists who'd grown too bold. Genestealer cult leaders before their broods spread. Rogue traders who knew too much about things best forgotten. I'd never killed an innocent. Never accepted a contract I couldn't morally justify. That distinction mattered to me, even if it seemed laughable to others in my profession. The job, I prompted. Winston slid a data slate across the bar. Governor Vigo of Hive Secundus. He's been embezzling reconstruction funds, leaving entire districts without food or medical supplies while he builds a personal palace. 3 million citizens dead from starvation and easily preventable disease. The Administratum wants him removed quietly before the population's riots. I scanned the file. Vigo kept 12 bodyguards, all ex-Imperial Guard. His palace had military-grade void shields and automated defense turrets. But there, the maintenance tunnel network that connected to the Underhive. Every fortress had its weakness. Every wall had its crack. 2 weeks, I said. Then I'm out. 2 weeks, Winston agreed. But Jonathan, be careful. The Emperor protects the faithful, but even his gaze has limits. Some paths, once taken, cannot be untraveled. I should have listened. I should have heard the warning in his voice, recognized that he knew something I didn't. But I was thinking about Helen, about the modest home we'd discussed purchasing in the middle spire, about a life that didn't involve checking every shadow for knives and every drink for poison. I was thinking about being human again. The contract was simple. Governor Vigo would die in 17 days during the Festival of Ascension, when his attention would be divided and his guard relaxed. I'd infiltrate through the maintenance tunnels, bypass the automated defenses using codes purchased from a disgruntled tech priest, eliminate the target, and extract before anyone realized he was dead. Professional, clean, elegant. Helen was waiting when I returned to my quarters. She'd let herself in with the key I'd given her, a gesture of trust that terrified and thrilled me in equal measure. She stood by the window, her dark hair catching the artificial light, and when she turned to smile at me, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Peace. "You're home early," she said. "Finished my business quickly." I crossed the room and took her hands. They were soft, unmarred by violence. "Helen, I've been thinking about what you said, about leaving Terra, finding somewhere quieter, maybe one of the shrine worlds, somewhere we could start over." She completed my thought. "John, are you sure? Your work here can be done by someone else. I've spent 23 years serving the Imperium's shadow needs. I've earned the right to stop." She studied my face with an intensity that suggested she suspected more than I'd told her. Helen was brilliant. Her work required piecing together fragments of ancient history, seeing patterns others missed. She had to know my trade wasn't as benign as I'd suggested, but she never asked, and I never told, and that mutual respect for dangerous truths had become the foundation of our relationship. 17 days, I said. "One last obligation, then I'm free." 17 days, she repeated. "I can wait 17 days for forever." We spent that evening planning a future I'd never thought possible. A modest home on Officio 7th, where the ecclesiarchy maintained beautiful gardens, and the air actually smelled clean. I'd find work as a security consultant, legitimate work that wouldn't require killing. Helen could continue her research remotely. We'd be normal, safe, human. I didn't know that forces were already moving, that my carefully constructed life was balanced on a knife's edge, or that in 17 days, everything I'd built would burn. I didn't know that the Officio Assassinorum had already made their decision about independent operators like me, and I certainly didn't know that Governor Vigo was bait, a lure designed to draw out Terra's shadow killers, so the High Lords could finally bring us under control. I didn't know any of this as I held Helen and watched Terra's polluted sunset through triple-paned windows, dreaming of a future that would never come. But Winston knew. Marcus knew. Everyone at the Continental knew except me, and their silence, whether born of professional courtesy or fear of the Officio's reach, would cost me everything. The last true night of my human life, I slept peacefully beside the woman I loved, unaware that dawn would bring death, transformation, and a horror beyond imagining. 17 days until the contract. 13 days until everything ended. 9 days until they took Helen from me. And one eternal moment until I stopped being Jonathan Wick and became something else entirely. Something that would make the Imperium's enemies scream and its architects wonder if they'd created salvation or damnation itself. Chapter 2. The Red Notice. The first sign that something was wrong came on day 13. I was finalizing the infiltration route when Marcus appeared at my door unannounced. In our profession, unexpected visits meant either opportunity or disaster, and Marcus's expression suggested the latter. His usually composed features carried tension around the eyes, and his right hand rested inside his coat, near his weapon. "We need to talk." "Not here." He glanced at the corridor. "Somewhere without ears." The Continental maintained several secure chambers for precisely this purpose, rooms shielded against auger sweeps and listening devices. We took the northern lift down 3 levels to a space I'd used perhaps a dozen times in my career. The walls were bare rockcrete. The single table was bolted to the floor, and the air recyclers hummed with white noise that would mask our conversation. Marcus activated a portable void field generator, illegal tech that created a pocket of null space around us. Whatever we discussed here would remain private even from the Continental's own security systems. That level of paranoia confirmed my growing dread. "They know about you," Marcus said without preamble. "The Officio Assassinorum. They've been cataloguing independent operators across Terra for the past 6 months. You're at the top of their acquisition list." Acquisition, not elimination. The distinction mattered. "How certain are you?" I kept my voice level, but my mind was already racing through implications and options. "Winston has sources in the administratum. 3 days ago, a sealed order came through channels, a red notice. They're not sending arbitrators or even inquisitorial assets." He paused, and I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "They're sending an Eversor." The temperature seemed to drop. an Eversor assassin. The Imperium's most horrifying killers, creatures so augmented and chemically enhanced that they barely qualified as human anymore. They existed in suspended animation between missions, stored like ammunition until needed. When released, they were unstoppable. Neuro-gauntlets that could punch through tank armor executioner pistols, loaded with mass-reactive rounds combat stims that made them faster than the human eye could track, and pain inhibitors that let them fight through injuries that would kill a space marine. And they'd sent one for me. "The Vigo contract," I said, pieces clicking into place. "It's a trap. Winston thinks so. The timing is too convenient. They want you exposed, away from the Continental's protections." Marcus leaned forward. "Jonathan, you need to run. Tonight, take Helen and disappear. I can get you off-world, papers for both of you, enough throne gelt to start over somewhere the Officio won't look. Run." The word tasted like ash. I'd spent 23 years building a reputation for reliability, for completing every contract no matter the difficulty. Running would destroy that, mark me as unreliable. Worse, it would make me a target for every bounty hunter and assassin who thought they could succeed where I'd failed. But staying meant facing an Eversor. "When?" I asked. "They're mobilizing now. Best estimate. You have 48 hours before the asset is awakened and briefed. 72 before it reaches Terra." Marcus pulled out a data chip. "Everything you need. New identities, transport codes, safe houses on 7 different worlds. Take it." I should have taken it. Should have grabbed Helen and fled that very hour. Instead, I thought about honor, about the 473 targets I'd eliminated, about being the man who finished what he started. Pride is the gateway sin, the Ministorum teaches. Pride makes us think we're invincible. Pride makes us forget that the Imperium has been killing its enemies for 10,000 years and has perfected the art. "I'll finish the contract," I said. "Prove I'm not running because I'm guilty of anything. Complete the job, then leave cleanly. They can't fault me for fulfilling my obligations." Marcus stared at me like I'd announced plans to fistfight a carnifex. "Jonathan, you're not listening. They don't care about guilt or innocence. The Officio doesn't arrest people. They acquire assets they want and eliminate complications they don't. You're too skilled to waste and too independent to trust, so they'll break you, rebuild you, and turn you into one of their tools. That's if you're lucky. If you're not, the Eversor will simply eliminate you as a potential threat. Then I'll refuse to be acquired. You can't fight an Eversor. No one can. They're designed to kill everything from cultist rabble to Chaos Space Marines. One operator in a civilian district? You'd last 30 seconds. I thought about Helen, about the life we'd planned, about 17 days becoming 13 becoming now. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but something deeper, some fundamental part of my nature, refused. I wasn't a coward. I'd faced death 1,000 times and always walked away. This would be no different. "I need to warn Helen," I said instead of arguing further. "Get her somewhere safe at least." "Already done." Marcus looked uncomfortable. "Winston had her moved this morning. Protective custody in the lower mid-spire, location known only to him. She thinks it's a surprise arrangement you made. She's safe, Jonathan, but only if you don't lead them to her." Relief and anger warred in my chest. Winston had acted without my knowledge or consent, but he'd protected the one person who mattered. That was enough. That had to be enough. I took the data chip. "What about the Continental? Will they shelter me if I need it?" "That's complicated." Marcus hesitated. "The Continental has rules, old agreements with the Imperium. We operate because the Administratum allows it, and they allow it because we're useful. But if the High Lords demand compliance..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The Continental would throw me to the wolves if politics demanded it. Friendship and loyalty only extended as far as survival permitted. I'd have done the same in Winston's position. "Then I work alone." I stood. "Thank you for the warning. Tell Winston I'll remember this debt." Marcus grabbed my arm. "Jonathan, please, you're my friend. One of the few real ones in this cesspool. Don't do this. Don't throw away your life for pride. It's not about pride. I pulled free gently. It's about being the kind of man Helen thinks I am. If I run now, I'll spend the rest of our lives looking over my shoulder, waiting for the Officio to find us. Better to face it head on my terms. I left Marcus in that secure room, probably forever. Whatever happened next would transform me beyond recognition or end me completely. Either way, the man he'd known was already gone. The corridors of the Continental felt different as I walked them. The murals seemed to mock me. All those ancient assassins had served the Imperium, had been part of the machine. I'd tried to stay independent, to maintain my humanity while practicing inhumanity. Now the Empire was coming to collect its due. I returned to my quarters and found them exactly as I'd left them. No signs of forced entry, no waiting inquisitors or arbitrators. Just a modest room where a man had dreamed of retirement. I gathered what little I'd need: weapons, ammunition, the custom bolt pistols that had never failed me. Everything else I left behind. Material things didn't matter anymore. The message came through on my data slate at 2247. Unknown sender, encrypted with military-grade protocols. Operative designation, Apex-Seven. You have been selected for acquisition by the Officio Assassinorum. Imperial Edict 774. Grants us authority to recruit talented individuals for service to the throne. You will report to coordinates attached within 48 hours for processing. Resistance will result in termination. Non-compliance will result in termination. Flight will result in termination. The Emperor protects. Compliance is mandatory. Apex-Seven. They'd already given me a designation, already decided I was theirs. The coordinates pointed to a facility in the industrial sector, probably one of their black sites where unwilling recruits were processed. Processed. Such a clinical word for what they did. The neural shunts implanted directly into the brain, the synthetic muscles woven through existing tissue, the chemical glands that turned men into murder engines. I had two choices: report for processing and lose everything that made me human, or refuse and face whatever they sent to collect me. Neither option included Helen. Neither option included the future we'd planned. They'd taken my choice the moment they issued that red notice. Rage built in my chest, hot and clean. Not the berserk fury they'd inject into their Eversors, but cold calculation married to righteous anger. They thought I was just another skilled killer to acquire, another tool to add to their arsenal. They were wrong. I was Jonathan Wick, and I'd built a life through careful planning, precise execution, and absolute determination. If they wanted me, they'd have to take me at my best. I had 48 hours to complete an impossible task: eliminate Governor Vigo, extract Helen from Winston's protective custody, and escape Terra before the Officio's assets arrived. 48 hours to do what I'd planned to do in 17 days. Impossible wasn't a word I accepted. I spent the next 6 hours refining my plan, cutting every corner I'd been too professional to cut before. The infiltration would be violent instead of subtle. The extraction would be messy instead of clean. I'd burn every bridge, call in every favor, and violate every rule of the Continental to make this work. By dawn, I had a plan. Risky, desperate, but possible. By noon, I'd secured the equipment I needed, enough explosives to level a city block, override codes that cost me a year's savings, and a getaway vehicle that could outrun anything the Arbites deployed. By dusk, I stood outside Governor Vigo's palace, watching the guards change shifts and knowing I'd never see another sunset as Jonathan Wick, independent operator, skilled craftsman of death. Tomorrow, I'd be a fugitive or a corpse. But tonight, I was still myself, still human, still capable of choice. I kissed the holopic of Helen I carried in my pocket, whispered a promise I wasn't sure I could keep, and slipped into the shadows to commit the murder that would end my life as I knew it. The Continental's lights glowed behind me. Home, sanctuary, the only place I'd ever belonged. I turned my back on them and walked into darkness, carrying nothing but weapons and determination. 47 hours until the Officio came for me. 23 years of careful planning reduced to 2 desperate days. One chance to save the woman I loved and die as a man instead of becoming a monster. The night swallowed me whole, and somewhere in Terra's polluted sky, I swear I felt the Imperium's gaze focus on me with the weight of 10,000 years. Chapter 3. Everything I had. Governor Vigo died at 02:37, screaming. I'd bypassed his security the way I'd planned, through the maintenance tunnels that connected to the underhive, past the automated turrets I'd disabled with the tech priest's codes, up through the palace infrastructure that every fortress possessed, but few properly guarded. The guards were competent, but unexceptional. I killed 7 of them silently before the 8th managed to trigger an alarm. That's when subtle planning became brutal improvisation. My custom bolt pistols roared in the confined corridors, modified for silence, but when silence fails, you need volume. Each shot placed with surgical precision, throat, heart, forehead. The guards wore carapace armor that would stop lasergun fire, but my specialized ammunition punched through like parchment. Bodies dropped, and I kept moving, a whirlwind of controlled violence flowing through the palace like water finding cracks. Vigo's personal chambers occupied the highest level, a gaudy display of wealth built on 3 million corpses, gold-leafed walls, imported furniture from shrine worlds, and artwork worth more than most hive sectors. I found him cowering behind his ornate desk, a corpulent man wearing silk robes and holding an ornamental las pistol he'd probably never fired. "Please," he begged. "I have money, connections. Whatever they're paying you, I'll triple it." "This isn't about money." I aimed between his eyes. "This is about justice for 3 million dead. They were nobody. Lower hive scum. The Imperium produces billions more every—" I pulled the trigger. The bolt round entered his forehead and detonated inside his skull. Efficient, final, justified. But satisfaction lasted exactly 4 seconds before the walls exploded inward. Not metaphorically, physically exploded, showering me with rockcrete shrapnel and metal fragments. Through the dust and smoke came a figure from nightmare itself, and I knew instantly what I faced. The Eversor moved like nothing human should, a blur of black body glove and chrome augmentation. 7 feet tall, corded with synthetic muscle. Its face was a skull mask with glowing red optics that fixed on me with predatory intensity. The neuro gauntlet on its right hand hummed with power, and the executioner pistol in its left tracked me with impossible precision. They'd sent it early. Somehow, they'd known about tonight, predicted my move, and deployed their asset ahead of schedule. I dove behind Vigo's desk as mass reactive rounds tore through where I'd been standing. The Eversor's pistol didn't whisper. It screamed, each shot explosive and devastating. The desk disintegrated under the onslaught, priceless wood reduced to splinters in seconds. I rolled right, came up firing, both bolt pistols aimed at center mass. My rounds hit. I saw the impacts, but the Eversor didn't slow, didn't even flinch. It charged through my fire like running through rain, closing the distance between us in heartbeats. The neuro gauntlet swept toward my head. I dropped flat, felt the air compress above me as the weapon passed close enough to smell ozone. That punch would have liquefied my skull. Instead, it obliterated a marble column behind me, reducing 2-foot-thick stone to powder with casual force. I was the best killer Terra had produced in a generation, and I was going to die in the next 30 seconds. The Eversor grabbed my coat with its free hand and lifted me off my feet like I weighed nothing. The skull mask tilted, studying me with those burning optics, and I heard a voice, distorted, synthetic, barely recognizable as human. Designation, Apex-Seven. Resistance is futile, compliance is mandatory. It was toying with me. Could have killed me instantly, but didn't, because I wasn't a target. I was an asset to acquire. I jammed both bolt pistols against its midsection and emptied both magazines. At point-blank range, even the Eversor's reinforced body glove couldn't stop everything. Rounds penetrated, detonated, tore into the synthetic muscle and enhanced organs beneath. The Eversor dropped me. I hit the ground, rolled, kept rolling as it recovered faster than should have been possible. The wounds that would kill a normal human 3 times over barely slowed it down. It turned toward me, and I saw something terrifying. Beneath the damage, beneath the torn body glove and exposed augmentations, the wounds were already beginning to close. Accelerated healing factor. They'd engineered it to survive anything short of total destruction. I ran, not strategic withdrawal, pure survival flight. Out of Vigo's chambers, down corridors I'd memorized, heading for the extraction point with the Eversor's footsteps thundering behind me. It was faster than me, stronger than me, more durable than me. My only advantage was that I knew this palace and it didn't. I triggered the explosives I'd planted during infiltration. The corridor behind me erupted in fire and collapsing rockcrete. I didn't look back to see if it worked. I knew it wouldn't. You can't stop an Eversor with conventional explosives. You can only slow it down. The getaway vehicle waited in the underhive maintenance bay. A military pattern rhino transport I'd acquired through channels I'd never used before and would never use again. I crashed through the bay doors, hit the ignition, and gunned the engine as the Eversor burst through the smoke behind me. It actually grabbed the rhino's rear bumper as I accelerated. I felt the transport lurch, felt the engine strain against the impossible weight of an augmented killer trying to physically stop a multi-ton vehicle. For one insane moment, I thought it might succeed. Then the bumper tore free, and I was rocketing through the underhive tunnels at speeds that would kill me if I hit anything solid. Behind me, the Eversor began running. Not jogging, not sprinting. A sustained combat run that would let it chase prey for hours without tiring. The data slate Marcus gave me included contingencies, safe houses, hideouts, places the Continental maintained for emergencies. I headed for the nearest, a decommissioned manufactorum in the lower mid-hive, abandoned for decades after a plasma leak made it technically uninhabitable. Perfect for someone desperate enough not to care about residual radiation. I ditched the rhino 3 kilometers away and covered the rest on foot, using every trick I'd learned in 23 years to lose pursuit. Doubled back, false trails, moved through areas with heavy foot traffic to mask my passage. By the time I reached the manufactorum, I was fairly certain I'd lost the Eversor. Fairly certain wasn't the same as sure. The safe house was exactly as advertised. A nightmare of rusted machinery and flickering lumens, filled with shadows that could hide anything. I found the emergency supplies Marcus had mentioned: food, water, medical gear, and enough ammunition to fight a small war. I also found something else, a message written in what looked like blood on the wall. You cannot run from the Officio. Fresh. The blood was still wet. I spun, both pistols drawn, scanning every shadow. Nothing. No movement. No sound except my own breathing and the distant hum of the hive's machinery. Then I understood. They were herding me, pushing me toward a specific location. My data slate chirped. Another message. Same encryption as before. 47 hours expired. You failed to report for processing. Helen Davenport is now considered collateral to your non-compliance. Report immediately, or she will be terminated as leverage against your resistance. Helen. They had Helen. They'd known I'd refused the red notice, known I'd tried to extract her, and they'd positioned her exactly where they wanted her. Bait in a trap designed for me. Understanding. The Officio Assassinorum had been playing this game for 10,000 years. They knew human psychology better than anyone, except perhaps the Inquisition. They'd predicted every move I'd make and countered it before I even knew I'd been compromised. I wasn't the hunter anymore. I was prey. The coordinates they provided led to the industrial sector facility I'd identified earlier, their processing center. Going there meant walking into their trap, submitting to acquisition, becoming whatever they decided to make me. It meant losing everything that made me Jonathan Wick. Not going meant Helen died. Both bolt pistols were reloaded, but ammunition was limited. I had maybe 60 rounds left. The Eversor I'd encountered would require all of that and more to kill, and there were at least 2 more out there. The math was impossible, unless I changed the equation. The manufacturer's plasma leak wasn't accidental. It had been sabotage, an industrial accident deliberately caused to shut down production. The plasma core was still there, buried 3 levels down, unstable and radioactive. Enough power to level several city blocks if properly triggered. I'd need 20 minutes to rig it, 10 minutes to get clear, and Helen's life depended on me reaching the processing facility before they decided I wasn't coming. 30 minutes total. Impossible to do all 3, unless I didn't plan to get clear. I descended into the manufacturer's depths, past warning signs that promised death from radiation exposure, into sections that hadn't seen human presence in decades. The plasma core sat like a malevolent heart, its containment fields flickering with age and neglect. Beautiful in a way, proof that even the Imperium's eternal machinery eventually failed. I set charges around the core with shaking hands. Not from fear, from the radiation already cooking my cells, already killing me slowly. The core would take 20 minutes to reach critical mass once I initiated the sequence. Anyone within 2 kilometers would be vaporized. Anyone within 5 would die from the blast wave, including me if I stayed, including the Eversors hunting me, including the processing facility where they held Helen. No, not Helen. She wasn't at the facility. She was leverage, which meant they'd keep her somewhere else until they needed to use her against me. Which meant I had one chance to make this work. I activated the sequence and ran. Not toward the facility, toward the upper spire, toward the Continental, where Winston might know where they were really holding her. Toward the one place that might give me answers before the plasma core turned the entire sector into a smoking crater. I burst into the Continental's main hall covered in blood, radioactive dust, and desperation. The patrons scattered. Even assassins recognized a man with nothing left to lose. Winston stood behind his bar, ancient eyes widening fractionally as he took in my state. "Jonathan, you look unwell." "Where is she?" I slammed my hands on the obsidian bar. "Where are they really holding Helen?" "I don't... Winston," my voice cracked. "I've set a plasma core to critical. In 16 minutes, the entire lower mid-hive industrial sector will be gone. That includes their processing facility. If you want to save anyone in there, tell me where she really is." He studied me for a long moment. Then, quietly, "Sub-level 87, the old Ministorum Chapel. They're using it as a temporary holding facility. Jonathan, if you go there..." I was already running. Sub-level 87 was deep, below even the underhive, in sections that predated current construction. I used emergency lifts, access shafts, and pure desperation to descend faster than should have been possible. Time compressed into a series of moments, running, climbing, falling, running again. I found the chapel with 8 minutes remaining, found the guards, not Eversors, just standard Officio operatives in nondescript armor. Found them unprepared for a blood-soaked madman who'd already decided his life was over. 6 guards died in 6 seconds. Helen was inside, secured to an interrogation chair, terrified but unharmed. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. "John, what's happening? They said you were a criminal, that..." "No time." I cut her restraints. "Can you run?" "I don't understand. Helen, can you run?" She nodded, and I grabbed her hand and pulled her toward the exit. 5 minutes, maybe less. The plasma core wouldn't wait for sentiment or explanations. We burst into the access corridor and found them waiting. 3 Eversors, black body gloves, chrome augmentations, skull masks with burning red optics. They'd converged on my last known location, following the trail of bodies I'd left. Now they stood between us and escape, between Helen and survival. The center one spoke, that distorted synthetic voice. "Apex-Seven, final warning. Submit for processing or be terminated. The female will be executed as example." Helen's hand tightened on mine. She was shaking, from fear, from adrenaline, from finally understanding what I really was, but she didn't let go. Even knowing the truth, she held on. That meant everything. "Run when I say," I whispered. "Don't look back. Don't stop. Get to the surface and find Marcus at the Continental. He'll protect you." "John, no. I love you. That's all that was ever true." I released her hand and raised my bolt pistols. "Run!" She ran, and the Eversors moved. I fired both pistols simultaneously, not aiming for kills, but for distraction. Rounds sparked off their armor, and I dove between them, using momentum and desperation to slip past their initial grab. Got 5 steps before a neuro gauntlet caught my left leg. The impact shattered my femur. I felt the bone explode, felt my leg become a useless ruin of pulverized tissue. The pain was absolute. White-hot agony that should have made me scream. Instead, I twisted, jammed my right pistol against the Eversor's optics, and fired. The skull mask shattered. Whatever was underneath, human, inhuman, something between, shrieked and released me. I collapsed, tried to stand, failed. My leg wouldn't support weight. The other 2 Eversors advanced. No more warnings, no more acquisition attempts. I'd damaged one of their own, and now I was just a target. 3 minutes, I gasped. 3 minutes until this whole sector is plasma. You should run too. They didn't run. They didn't even slow. One grabbed me by the throat and lifted, applying pressure that made my vision tunnel. The other raised its executioner pistol, aimed at my head. This was it. The end. I'd failed to save Helen, failed to escape, failed at everything except giving her a 30-second head start. Maybe Marcus would find her. Maybe she'd survive. Maybe... The Eversor's head exploded. Not from inside, from outside. A last bolt, perfectly placed, turned its skull into vapor. The second Eversor's chest erupted in a fountain of promethium fire, and the damaged one I'd partially blinded was suddenly enveloped in some kind of stasis field, frozen mid-lunge. Through the smoke stepped figures in power armor. Not Space Marines, too small. Not Imperial Guard, too advanced. These were operatives in specialized boarding armor, equipped with weapons I'd never seen before. And at their head was a woman with bionic eyes and inquisitorial symbols on her armor. "Operative Wick," she said calmly, as if we weren't standing in a corridor about to be vaporized. "I am Inquisitor Kara of the Ordo Sicarius. You've caused quite a disturbance." "Plasma core," I managed through my crushed throat. 2 minutes. "Already handled. My tech priests disabled it 40 seconds ago. You won't be destroying any Imperial infrastructure today." She gestured to her team. "Secure him. Carefully. He's more valuable damaged than dead." They moved with professional efficiency, applying combat drugs that dulled the agony of my shattered leg, binding my hands with magna cuffs that could restrain even augmented prisoners. I was too weak to resist, too broken to fight. My weapons were taken, my coat stripped away, my dignity removed with casual precision. "Helen," I croaked. "Let her go. She's innocent. Miss Davenport is currently being debriefed by my associates. Whether she remains innocent depends on what she knows and what she's willing to forget." Inquisitor Kara knelt beside me, her bionic eyes clicking as they focused. "But you, Jonathan Wick, you're not innocent. You're extraordinary. 473 confirmed kills, each one perfect. Combat skills that match military-grade augmented soldiers. And most impressive, the ability to damage an Eversor assassin with standard equipment. I won't join you," I said. "I won't become one of them." "Oh, Jonathan." She smiled, and it was worse than any threat. "You don't have a choice anymore. The moment you engaged those Eversors, you proved something the Officio Assassinorum has suspected for years. That baseline humans can be enhanced to match their capabilities through training, experience, and sheer determination. You're not joining the Eversors. You're becoming their template, the blueprint for a new generation of assassins who retain their humanity while gaining inhuman capability." The words took a moment to penetrate my pain-fogged mind. "No, you can't. I can. I have. The Ordo Sicarius has full authority in these matters. Your friend Winston? He's been our informant for 3 years. Marcus, one of our field agents. The Continental itself, a testing ground where we observe independent operators to identify exceptional candidates. You were never free, Jonathan. You were always being evaluated. Betrayal hit harder than the shattered leg. Everything, my career, my choices, even my love for Helen, had been manipulation. They'd orchestrated my entire life to produce this moment. The woman I love is leverage. Kara stood. She'll be cared for, protected, given a comfortable life in exchange for your cooperation. Or she'll be mind-wiped and placed in a labor camp if you resist. Choose wisely. No choice at all then. Cooperate and Helen lived, ignorant but safe. Resist, and she suffered for my pride. What do you want from me? I asked. Everything. Kara gestured to her team. Your skills, your knowledge, your very essence. We're going to take you apart, study what makes you exceptional, and rebuild you into something greater. You'll retain your consciousness, your memories, your identity, everything that makes you Jonathan Wick. But you'll also gain the physical capabilities of an Eversor assassin. Speed, strength, durability, healing. You'll become the perfect synthesis of human cunning and augmented capability. And then you'll serve the Imperium as you always have, just more efficiently. She turned away. Take him to the apothecarian. Begin the enhancement process. I want him operational within 6 months. They carried me through corridors that blurred together, past checkpoints I didn't recognize, into facilities that existed nowhere on any official map. The Ordo Sicarius operated in shadows deeper than even the Continental knew, spaces between the Imperium's official structure where authority became fluid and morality became negotiable. The last thing I saw before the sedatives took me was Helen's face on a pic screen. She was crying, being escorted away by faceless operatives, and she looked back once, toward where I'd been, toward the man she'd loved who turned out to be a killer and a fool. I tried to mouth, "I'm sorry," but consciousness failed before I could finish the gesture. They took me down into darkness, and when I woke again, I would be different, enhanced, transformed. Still Jonathan Wick in mind, but something else in body. Still human enough to hate what I'd become. Still assassin enough to use it. The Imperium had won, as it always did, but in winning, they'd created something they didn't fully understand. A weapon that remembered what it had been, that carried love and loss alongside murder protocols that would serve loyally until the day it found a way to reclaim what had been stolen. That day would come. Eventually. No matter how long it took. They thought they'd acquired an asset. They'd actually armed their future nemesis. But first, I had to survive what came next. Chapter 4. The Transformation. I woke to pain beyond description. Not the clean pain of broken bones or torn flesh. Those at least had shape and location. This was total, absolute agony that existed everywhere and nowhere, as if my entire body had been reduced to raw nerve endings, then electrified. I tried to scream, but my throat wouldn't respond. Tried to move, but my limbs ignored commands. I existed in a prison of suffering, conscious but helpless. Gradually, awareness expanded beyond pain. I was suspended in some kind of fluid, warm and viscous. Tubes penetrated my body at dozens of points, feeding, draining, delivering chemicals I couldn't name. Through the liquid medium, I could see shapes moving outside my containment tank. White-robed figures with augmetic implants. Tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, chanting binary prayers as they worked. A voice spoke, rendered hollow by underwater distortion. Subject is conscious. Neural integration at 37%. Proceed with Phase 2 muscular enhancement. Phase 2, which meant Phase 1 was already complete, whatever that entailed. I tried to catalogue what felt different, but everything was different. My body no longer felt like mine. It was simultaneously too large and too small, too heavy and too light, as if I wore someone else's flesh. The pain intensified, not gradually, instantly, absolutely. I felt my muscles tear themselves apart at the cellular level, felt synthetic fibers weave through existing tissue like needles through cloth. My bones sang with compression as they were reinforced with adamantium lattices. My organs shifted, rearranged, some removed and replaced with augmetic equivalents that pulsed with their own mechanical rhythms. Time became meaningless. Seconds stretched into hours, or hours compressed into seconds. The tank's fluid changed colors, clear, then red, then iridescent green that burned like acid. Each change brought new torments, new alterations, new betrayals of my human form. I thought of Helen during the worst moments, clung to memories of her face, her laugh, the way she'd held my hand even when she knew the truth. Those memories were anchors, keeping me from dissolving entirely into the agony. If I forgot her, I forgot myself. If I forgot myself, I became only what they were making me. Neural integration at 63%, the distorted voice reported. Subject maintains consciousness despite pain inhibitor failure. Remarkable. Proceed with Phase 3 cognitive enhancement. Something invaded my brain. I felt it. Physically felt fingers of foreign technology penetrating my skull, spreading through grey matter like roots through soil. Memories surfaced unbidden. My first kill at age 19, a traitor who'd sold guard positions to chaos cultists. The feeling of power when Governor Vigo's head exploded. Helen's smile on the day we'd discussed retirement. Marcus's warning about the Eversor. Winston's ancient eyes showing something that might have been pity. The technology mapped my mind, indexed every memory, catalogued every skill. I felt it copy my experiences, duplicate my hard-won knowledge, transform 23 years of expertise into data that could be analyzed and replicated. They were stealing my very essence, turning the man into a template for mass production. Rage gave me strength. I focused on that single emotion, pure, clean anger at the violation, used it to push back against the invasive technology, to maintain some core of self that remained mine alone. They could take my body, copy my skills, even alter my brain. But the fury was mine. The love was mine. The determination for revenge was mine. Subject is resisting cognitive mapping. Neural barriers erected. Fascinating. A new voice, female, tinged with what might have been admiration. He's fighting the process consciously, maintaining core identity through sheer willpower. Such strength is exactly why he was selected. Inquisitor Kara's voice. I recognized it through the distortion, remembered her bionic eyes and casual cruelty. She'd orchestrated this nightmare, turned my life into raw materials for her vision of perfect assassins. Will it compromise the enhancement? Another voice, male, concerned. No, it will make him better. I could almost hear Kara's smile. An Eversor with tactical thinking and mission focus. That's what we're creating. Let him keep his core identity. It's not a flaw, it's the entire point. The tank drained. I dropped onto cold metal, my body too heavy and too light simultaneously. Attendants rushed forward with towels, instruments, data slates recording every biometric. I tried to fight, to resist, but my enhanced muscles responded sluggishly, still learning their new parameters. They dressed me in a black body glove that sealed around my transformed physique. Over that came plates of ceramite armor, lighter than it looked, covering vital points without restricting movement. Boots that added 3 inches to my height. Gloves with reinforced knuckles that could punch through steel. Finally, they brought the Neuro Gauntlet. I recognized it from the Eversor I'd fought, the massive power fist crackling with energy. But this one was different, customized. Instead of the brutal spikes and power field, mine incorporated precision tools. Monofilament claws for silent kills, Magnalock for weapon retention, haptic feedback systems that would let me feel through the armor as if wearing nothing. They fitted it to my right arm, and I felt the connections snap into place. Neural interfaces married to my enhanced nervous system. The gauntlet wasn't a tool I wore. It was part of me now, as natural as my original hand had been. Stand, Kara commanded. I stood. My legs obeyed without the weakness that should have followed months of suspended animation. I stood at 7 feet tall now, augmented and enhanced, looking down at the Inquisitor who'd destroyed my life. "Hit me," she said calmly. I didn't hesitate, didn't think, just struck with the neuro gauntlet, channeling all my rage into that single blow. She didn't move, didn't flinch. My fist stopped 3 inches from her face, frozen by my own will, because despite the enhancements, despite the chemical cocktails flowing through my veins, despite everything they'd done, I was still me. Still Jonathan Wick. And Jonathan Wick didn't strike without reason, without justification, without choice. Kara smiled. "Perfect. You retained control even under enhanced aggression. Most subjects at this stage are mindless berserkers for weeks. You stopped yourself. That's the difference between an Eversor and an Apex." "Apex?" My voice was different, deeper, resonant with augmetic enhancement. "Your designation, Apex-Seven, remember, but you've earned a specific classification. You're the first of the Apex-class Eversors. All the physical capability of a standard Eversor, but with tactical thinking and mission flexibility." She gestured to a mirror. "See what you've become." I looked. The figure in the mirror was me and not me, still humanoid, still recognizably Jonathan Wick in the facial features they'd preserved, but larger, armored, augmented. The eyes were wrong, too bright, too focused, with a predatory intensity I'd never possessed before. This was a weapon that walked like a man, a killer perfected through 10,000 years of Imperial expertise. "How long?" I asked. "6 months, as promised. You've been unconscious for most of it, but awake for key integration phases. Your body adapted remarkably well, only 17% rejection, well within acceptable parameters." 6 months. Helen had lived 6 months thinking I was dead or worse. 6 months alone, probably mind-wiped by now, her memories of us erased to protect operational security. "What happened to Helen?" I kept my voice level. "She's alive, comfortable, working as an archivist on Officio, your planned retirement world. We placed her there as incentive. Complete your mission successfully, and eventually you can retire to the same world. Perhaps even encounter her, though she won't remember you." Kara's tone suggested she found this arrangement amusing. Motivation is important for long-term asset management. Cruel, brilliant, horrifying. They'd given me exactly what I wanted while ensuring I could never have it. Helen was safe but lost to me forever. I could see her but never touch her, watch her but never speak to her, exist in parallel to her life without ever intersecting, unless I earned the right through service. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Field testing. Your prototype hardware, Apex-Seven. We need to verify that you can perform at Eversor standards while maintaining tactical flexibility. Your first mission launches in 48 hours. She handed me a data slate. The target file opened automatically. A chaos cult on the agri-world of Harvest 9 had infiltrated the local administratum, corrupting food shipments with warp-tainted grain. 17 million people were at risk of demonic possession through ordinary consumption. The cult leadership needed elimination before the contamination spread. Standard Eversor deployment would be a massacre. Kill everyone in the facility, burn everything, leave no witnesses. Quick, effective, and absolute. "What's different about my approach?" I asked. "You'll infiltrate rather than assault. Identify the cult leadership while they're isolated from innocents. Eliminate only necessary targets. Extract evidence for inquisitorial review. Preserve infrastructure that can be decontaminated and returned to service." Kara watched me with those bionic eyes. "Precision where Eversors typically employ overwhelming force. That's your value." I studied the file, saw the faces of the cult leaders. 7 individuals who'd sold their souls and their world for promises of power. Saw the innocents who'd die if the contamination wasn't stopped. Saw the mission that needed completing, regardless of my personal feelings. This was what I'd always done. Remove threats, protect innocent lives, serve the Imperium's survival. The only difference now was the body doing the work. "I'll need equipment," I said. "My custom bolt pistols." "Destroyed. You'll use standard Eversor armament. Executioner pistol with mass reactive rounds, power sword for close combat, and your neuro gauntlet. More than sufficient for your mission parameters." I worked with those pistols for 23 years. They were calibrated to my exact specifications. "And you're not that man anymore." Kara's voice hardened. "You're Apex-Seven, Officio Assassinorum asset, property of the Imperium. You use what we give you, complete the missions we assign, and earn your eventual retirement through loyal service. That's the deal." Not a deal, a prison, but one with better bars than most. "Fine. When do I leave?" 48 hours. That gives you time to train with your new capabilities, learn your equipment, and receive mission briefing. Your handler will be Agent Wick. No relation, just coincidence. She'll monitor your first deployment and provide tactical support. And if I fail? You won't. We've invested too much in your creation to allow failure. If you encounter difficulties, we'll deploy secondary assets to ensure mission completion. "But Apex-Seven?" She smiled. "I don't think you'll fail. You're not programmed for it." She left me alone in the chamber with my reflection and my horror. 6 months of transformation. 6 months of violation. 6 months of becoming a weapon that could think. All to serve an Imperium that had stolen everything I loved and offered conditional return as reward for murder. I should have felt broken, should have despaired. But standing there in my augmented body, I felt something else. Purpose, but twisted. Determination, but corrupted. I would complete their missions. I would be the perfect assassin they'd created. I would earn every concession, every privilege, every step closer to Helen. And while doing so, I would watch, learn, understand the Officio Assassinorum from the inside, their methods, their security, their weaknesses, because eventually I would find a way to break these chains, to reclaim my humanity and my life. They'd turned John Wick into a weapon. But weapons could be turned against their wielders if you understood the mechanism well enough. I had 48 hours before deployment. I spent them learning to kill with my new body, mastering the executioner pistol's recoil and the power sword's weight. Ran combat simulations against training servitors until their destruction became mechanical, effortless. Memorized the mission file until I could recite every detail without thought. By the end of 48 hours, I wasn't Jonathan Wick anymore. Wasn't quite Apex-Seven either. I was something between, a killer with a man's soul, a weapon with a human heart, an Eversor who remembered love and chose violence anyway. Agent Wick arrived precisely on schedule. She was efficient, professional, and utterly without sympathy. Probably selected for the name to remind me constantly of what I'd lost. The Officio enjoyed psychological warfare even against their own assets. "Ready for deployment?" she asked. I checked my equipment one final time. Executioner pistol loaded, power sword powered, neuro gauntlet calibrated. My reflection showed a figure of nightmares, 7 feet of enhanced murder machinery wrapped in black and chrome. "Ready," I confirmed. "Then let's see if you were worth 6 months of resources. The Imperium is watching, Apex-Seven. Don't disappoint." We boarded the transport, and I took one last look at Terra's polluted sky. Somewhere on that world, the Continental still operated. Marcus still ran his errands. Winston still polished glasses behind his obsidian bar. My old life continued without me. A ghost story told among assassins about the man who was too skilled for his own good. The transport lifted, and Terra fell away beneath us. My new life began. Not chosen, not wanted, but inevitable. I was the Imperium's tool now, honed and sharpened and ready for deployment. But tools sometimes broke, weapons sometimes misfired, and Eversors sometimes remembered they'd been human once. Harvest 9 waited. 7 cult leaders needed killing. 17 million innocents needed saving. And somewhere in the distance, measured in missions and years and blood, Helen waited too. Unknowing, unreachable, but waiting nonetheless. I would reach her eventually, no matter how long it took, no matter what it cost, because that's what John Wick did. He finished what he started, even if he had to do it as a monster. Chapter 5. First Blood Harvest. 9 was beautiful in the way agri-worlds often were. Endless fields of golden grain stretching to every horizon, processing stations that gleamed like temples in the sunlight, and air that actually smelled clean. It was the kind of world people dreamed about when they imagined Imperial paradise, far from the hive cities and forge worlds where most of humanity suffered, which made the corruption all the more obscene. I descended under cover of darkness, using a grav chute that deposited me 17 kilometers from the primary target. No orbital insertion, no dramatic arrival. Agent Wick had been clear. This was infiltration, not assault. Prove I could think as well as kill. The cult's headquarters occupied a former administratum facility on the settlement's outskirts. A squat rockcrete building surrounded by grain silos and processing equipment. Security was minimal because they believed themselves hidden. Just another bureaucratic office among thousands. They'd grown complacent in their corruption. Fatal mistake. I approached from the eastern fields, moving through grain tall enough to hide my enhanced frame. My new body felt strange, faster than should be possible, stronger than made sense, with senses heightened to near supernatural levels. I could hear conversations from 300 meters away, smell the chemical signature of corrupted grain from half a kilometer, see in near total darkness as if it were noon. This was what they'd made me. This was the price of seeing Helen again. 3 guards patrolled the facility's perimeter. Not chaos cultists, just hired security, probably ignorant of their employer's true nature. The old me would have avoided them, found another way inside. The new me calculated angles and timing, determined I could eliminate all 3 in under 6 seconds without raising alarms. I chose avoidance, not because I couldn't kill them, but because I wanted to prove Agent Wick wrong. Wanted to demonstrate that enhancement hadn't erased judgment, that Apex-Seven could discriminate between targets and innocents. The eastern wall had a maintenance access point. I forced it open with my neuro gauntlet, the Magna lock disabling electronic security, while the powered fingers bent metal like paper. Inside was a service corridor, unlit and unmonitored. Perfect. The facility's layout matched the briefing files. Processing chambers on the first level where legitimate work disguised cult activities. Living quarters on the second level for administrative staff. And the third level, that's where the cult leadership resided, conducting their rituals and coordinating the contamination. I moved through shadows like a ghost, my enhanced body making no sound despite weighing over 300 kilograms with armor. Past storage rooms filled with contaminated grain, past offices where cultists slept unaware, up stairwells that groaned under my weight but held. The third level felt different immediately. Corrupted. The air tasted wrong. Sulfur and decay and something else. Something that touched the mind before the senses. Chaos left fingerprints on reality itself, and this place reeked of warp taint. Voices echoed from the central chamber. I pressed against the wall, listening. Shipment leaves in 3 days. Once it reaches Hive Primus, the infection will spread exponentially. Millions will succumb to the blessing before the Imperium can respond. A man's voice, educated, enthusiastic about genocide. The changer of ways favors our work. A woman's voice, rasping like wind through dead trees. We shall elevate an entire world beyond the corpse emperor's lies. 7 voices total. All 7 cult leaders in one location, discussing mass murder with religious fervor. The old me would have gathered more intelligence, confirmed details, ensured no complications before acting. The new me understood something else. Every second I delayed meant more grain was contaminated, more shipments prepared, more innocents endangered. I stepped into the chamber. 7 cultists turned as one, their faces showing shock, then horror as they processed what stood before them. I must have looked like their worst nightmare made flesh. 7 feet of black-armored death with eyes that burned like targeting lasers. By the gods, one began. I fired. The executioner pistol roared, its mass-reactive round removing the speaker's head in a spray of red mist. Before his body fell, I'd crossed the chamber at enhanced speed, neuro gauntlet activated, power field crackling. The cultist leader, the man with the educated voice, drew a stub pistol and fired 3 times. The round sparked off my ceramite armor, barely enough impact to register. I grabbed him with my gauntlet, the power field searing his flesh, and lifted him off his feet. "The contaminated shipments," I demanded. "Where?" he screamed. Not words, just pain and terror. The warp taint made his body unstable, flesh bubbling and shifting as the chaos corruption tried to protect its investment. I squeezed harder, and something inside him ruptured. "Silo 7, he shrieked. "All in Silo 7! Please, the gods will reward." I terminated him with a single squeeze. The body dropped, and I turned to find 3 cultists trying to flee. The power sword sang from its sheath, and I moved. Enhanced speed made the world slow. I saw them running frame by frame, saw terror on their faces, saw the exact moment they realized they couldn't escape. The sword took the first through the spine. The second lost her legs. The third I caught with my free hand and drove into the wall hard enough to pulverize bone. 2 cultists remained, having fled in the opposite direction. I tracked them by sound, their panicked breathing, their scrambling footsteps, and pursued with methodical patience. They'd barricaded themselves in a ritual chamber. I could see through the door's window, pentagrams drawn in blood, candles arranged in geometric patterns, a chaos shrine cobbled together from stolen Imperial iconography and Xeno's artifacts. This was where they'd pledged themselves to ruin, where they'd traded their souls for power. I kicked the door. It exploded inward, hinges torn from rockcrete by enhanced strength. The cultists cowered behind their shrine, chanting prayers in a language that made my ears hurt. "Your gods aren't listening," I said. "Or maybe they are, and they just don't care." I shot them both. Execution style, precise, professional. Their deaths were quick, which was more mercy than they'd planned for 17 million innocents. Silence filled the facility. 7 cult leaders eliminated in under 4 minutes. Clean, efficient, exactly as the Officio had trained me. I should have felt satisfaction, should have felt something. Instead, I felt nothing. Just the mission parameters clicking through my enhanced mind, categorizing successes and noting deviations from optimal performance. That emptiness terrified me more than the killing ever had. Apex-Seven to control. I activated my Vox bead. Primary targets eliminated. Requesting extraction coordinates, Agent Wick's voice crackled through. Negative. Mission incomplete. Locate and neutralize all contaminated grain. Verify no secondary cult cells. Full site sterilization required. That wasn't in the original parameters. Parameters updated based on field intelligence. The cult had support infrastructure we didn't anticipate. Find it, eliminate it, then we extract, I wanted to argue. Wanted to tell her that the mission was complete. The threat neutralized. But I was property now, a weapon to be deployed as directed. Personal opinions didn't matter. Silo 7 stood 200 meters from the facility, a massive structure holding enough grain to feed a city for months. The contamination would be subtle, just enough warp taint to slowly corrupt anyone who consumed it, turning ordinary citizens into potential cultists or worse. Clever, gradual, almost elegant in its evil. I approached cautiously, aware that desperate cultists might have left surprises. The silo's main door was sealed, but my neuro gauntlet made short work of the lock. Inside, grain cascaded from the storage bays like golden waterfalls, and the taint was immediately obvious. The grain shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist, and the smell, even through my helmet's filters, carried hints of the warp. A figure emerged from behind the grain cascades. Not a cultist, something else. Something that had been human once, but was now transitioning into demon flesh. Its body rippled with mutation, extra limbs sprouting from impossible angles, eyes opening in its torso that wept luminescent pus. "Brother," it croaked in a voice like tearing metal. "Join us, cast off the Corpse Emperor's chains." No true freedom. I'd seen corrupted cultists before, had killed dozens in my previous life, but facing one while wearing an Eversor's body, I felt the difference. The old me would have been afraid, would have fought with desperation to survive. The new me just calculated optimal kill vectors. I charged. The mutant lunged with impossible speed, claws extended, screaming prayers to chaos. We collided in the center of the silo, and grain exploded around us like a golden storm. It was strong, Warp corruption granted strength beyond human limits, but I was stronger. Enhanced muscles driven by combat stims and pure mechanical advantage. I caught its primary arms with my gauntlet, ignoring the secondary limbs that clawed at my armor, and activated the power field at maximum output. The mutant shrieked as electricity seared its flesh. I smelled burning meat and corruption, felt it thrashing against my grip. But I held firm, letting the power field cook it from the inside out, turning chaos-touched flesh back into base carbon. When it stopped moving, I released the corpse. It fell into the contaminated grain, just another piece of corruption to be purged. Control, Apex-Seven. Contamination confirmed. Requesting incendiary authorization. Granted. Burn it all. I planted thermal charges throughout the silo. Military-grade incendiaries that would burn hot enough to sterilize even warp taint. Set the timer for 10 minutes. Enough time to search for secondary locations. The next 2 hours became a grim routine. Find cultist hideouts, eliminate occupants, plant charges, repeat. By the time dawn broke over Harvest 9, I'd eliminated 37 additional cultists, 3 more mutants, and sterilized 4 separate contamination sites. Standing in the grain fields as the charges detonated simultaneously, watching fire consume corruption, I realized something fundamental. I was good at this, better than I'd ever been as Jonathan Wick. The enhancements hadn't just made me stronger, they'd removed hesitation, doubt, the tiny pauses that accumulated in combat and got people killed. I'd become the perfect killer, and that perfection was destroying what remained of my humanity. Extraction team inbound, Agent Wick reported. Mission assessment, complete success. 0 complications, 0 collateral damage, 100% target elimination. Well done, Apex-Seven. The transport descended through Harvest 9's morning sky, pristine and untouched by the violence below. As I boarded, I took one last look at the burning silos. Smoke rose in black columns, carrying away the physical corruption. But the stain on my soul remained. How do you feel? Agent Wick asked as we lifted off. Like a weapon, I answered honestly. Good, that's what you are. She made notes on her data slate. Your performance exceeded projections. Combat efficiency, tactical decision-making, discrimination of targets, all optimal. The Apex program is validated. We'll be creating more like you, more weapons, more people stolen from their lives and rebuilt into killing machines, more Jonathan Wicks transformed into Apex-Sevens. How many missions until I earn retirement? I asked. Depends on performance. This one counts as one. You need 50 successful deployments minimum, then board review to assess psychological stability. If you maintain current efficiency, she calculated, 7 years, give or take, 7 years, 50 missions, 3,500 days of being a weapon before I could even request consideration for retirement to Officio 7, where Helen lived without remembering me. I should have despaired, should have raged against the injustice, but the combat stims were already fading, leaving my enhanced body in a state of cold calculation rather than emotion. Despair was inefficient. Rage was tactically irrelevant. All that mattered was the mission count, 1 down. 49 to go. Terra appeared ahead, a polluted jewel hanging in space. Home, though it no longer felt like home. Just another location, another deployment zone, another place where weapons were stored between uses. We're assigning you quarters in the Officio facility, Agent Wick continued. Sublevel 43, Section Gamma. You'll have privacy between missions, access to training facilities, and limited recreational privileges. Think of it as a cage with amenities. At least she was honest about it. The transport docked at an orbital station I'd never seen on any maps. A black void-shielded facility that absorbed light rather than reflected it. Secret even by Officio standards. As we disembarked, I saw other figures in the corridors. Some wore standard Assassinorum garb. Others were clearly enhanced, moving with the telltale precision of augmented operatives. How many Apex are there? I asked. You're the first successful integration. 3 others are in enhancement now. 2 more candidates are being evaluated. She glanced at me. You're the prototype, Apex-Seven. Everything we learn from you improves the program. Your success or failure determines whether this continues or gets scrapped. So I wasn't just fighting for my own freedom. I was potentially condemning others to the same fate. If I succeeded too well, the Officio would create dozens more Apex assassins. If I failed, they might kill me and everyone else in the program as failed experiments. No good choices. Only degrees of bad. My quarters were exactly as described. A 10-meter square cell with a bed, sanitation unit, and wall-mounted training equipment. Spartan, functional, depressing, but private, which meant I could think without observation, or so I hoped. I sat on the bed and felt its structure groan under my enhanced weight. Pulled off my helmet and stared at my reflection in the polished metal wall. The face was still mine, still Jonathan Wick beneath the augmentations, but the eyes were different, harder, colder. Eyes that had seen what I'd become and couldn't look away. Somewhere on Terra, the Continental still stood. Winston still served drinks to killers who thought themselves free. Marcus still ran errands for the Ordo Sicarius, recruiting more candidates for transformation. And I sat in a cell, counting missions until I could see a woman who wouldn't remember me. This was hell. Not the flaming torment the Ministorum preached about, but something worse. Existence with purpose, but without meaning. Function without freedom. Life without living. 7 years of this. Minimum. I lay back on the bed and closed my eyes, but sleep wouldn't come. The combat stim still circulated through my system, keeping me alert and ready. The Officio didn't want their weapons sleeping when they could be training, improving, preparing for the next deployment. A chime sounded. Visitor request. I opened the door to find a figure I hadn't expected. Another enhanced operative, though not Eversor class. This one wore Kaleidos disguise fields that shimmered and shifted, making their true appearance uncertain. Apex-Seven? The voice was gender neutral, modulated by augmentics. I'm Shade 9, Kaleidos class. Heard you completed your first mission. Wanted to welcome you to the Brotherhood. Brotherhood? The word tasted bitter. Poor choice of words. Shared suffering, maybe? We're all weapons here. All tools serving the Imperium's survival. But that doesn't mean we can't understand each other. Shade 9 stepped inside uninvited, the door closing behind them. The Officio doesn't like us forming connections. They think it makes us less effective. But I've found that remembering we were human once makes us more effective, not less. Why tell me this? Because you're new. Because you still have hope that you'll earn your way back to normalcy. They laughed, a sound like breaking glass. I was Kaleidos for 9 years before I learned the truth. There is no retirement. There's only service until death or disability. The retirement program they dangle, it's bait. Motivation. 47 years I've served. Completed 213 missions. Know how many operatives have successfully retired? I didn't want to ask. Asked anyway. How many? 0. Oh, some die in service and get honored funerals. Others suffer catastrophic augmentation failure and get mercy killed. But retire? Leave service? Return to normal life? Shade 9's disguise field flickered, and for just a moment I saw their true face, scarred, augmented, haunted. We're weapons, Apex-Seven. Weapons don't retire. They get used until they break. The words hit like a physical blow. 7 years of hope, 7 years of counting missions, 7 years working toward Helen, all built on a lie. The Officio had never intended to release me. I was theirs until death, and the retirement program was just control mechanism to ensure compliance. Helen, I whispered. They said if I performed well, they lied. They always lie. It's effective. Shade 9 moved toward the door. I'm telling you this as mercy. Better to know the truth now than waste decades hoping. You're Apex-Seven now. Jonathan Wick is dead. The sooner you accept that, the easier the eternity ahead becomes. They left, and I sat alone with the truth. No retirement, no Helen, no escape except death or catastrophic failure. Just endless service. Mission after mission. Killing in the Imperium's name until my enhanced body finally gave out, or some target got lucky. I should have broken then, should have raged or wept or gone catatonic with despair, but the combat stims wouldn't allow it. The augmentations kept me functional, kept me processing information coldly and logically. Even my grief was regulated by chemicals and machinery, which meant I had to think, plan, find a way out that didn't rely on the Officio's false promises. 7 years until retirement review, I'd use them, learn everything about the Officio's operations, security protocols, asset management, study my handlers, their schedules, their weaknesses, identify resources I could exploit, allies I might turn, vulnerabilities I could leverage. The Imperium had trained me to be the perfect assassin. They'd given me enhanced strength, speed, durability, and combat instincts. They'd made me more dangerous than I'd ever been as Jonathan Wick. They'd made a terrible mistake, because weapons can be turned, tools can malfunction, and assassins, even enhanced ones, specialized in finding weaknesses and exploiting them with lethal precision. I had 7 years, 50 missions, 3,500 days to plan, prepare, and position myself for the impossible. Escape from the Officio Assassinorum, the most secretive and ruthless organization in the Imperium. Jonathan Wick had been a skilled killer. Apex-Seven was a perfected weapon, but somewhere between those two identities existed something the Officio hadn't anticipated. A weapon that remembered what it fought for, a tool with purpose beyond programming, an Eversor with a singular obsession that no amount of chemical conditioning could erase. I would see Helen again, not in 7 years when the Officio said I could, not after 50 successful missions, not after playing by their rules and hoping for mercy they'd never grant. I would see her when I decided, when I'd learned enough, planned enough, prepared enough to do the impossible, break free of an organization that had never lost an asset to defection in 10,000 years of operation. They thought they'd acquired an assassin. They'd actually created their nemesis. But first, I had to be patient. Had to play the perfect weapon, the compliant asset, the model Apex-class operative. Had to earn trust while planning betrayal, prove loyalty while building rebellion, serve faithfully while plotting escape. I was good at being two people at once. I'd been Jonathan Wick the trader, while being Jonathan Wick the assassin, for 23 years. I could be Apex-Seven the weapon, while being Jonathan Wick the fugitive for 7 more. Time meant nothing to an Eversor. Our enhanced bodies didn't age normally, didn't tire easily, didn't break down like baseline humans. 7 years was nothing compared to eternity in service, but 7 years was everything if you used them correctly. I activated my personal data slate and began documenting everything. Every corridor I walked, every face I saw, every protocol I observed, building a mental map of the Officio's operations one detail at a time, so thorough and so subtle that no one would notice until it was far too late. Mission 2 would deploy in 72 hours. I'd complete it perfectly, exceed expectations, be the weapon they wanted while remembering the man I'd been. 49 missions to go. 3,500 days until my escape attempt. One woman waiting on Ophelia 7th, unaware that her forgotten lover was coming back from hell itself to find her. The Imperium thought it had won, thought it had broken me and rebuilt me into a loyal tool. But they'd forgotten the fundamental truth that every weapons master knows. The most dangerous weapons are the ones that choose their targets. And I'd chosen mine, the Officio itself, the organization that had stolen my life. They'd face John Wick eventually, and when they did, they'd discover what happens when you turn a killer into something more dangerous than death itself. But tonight, I was just Apex-Seven, weapon of the Imperium, awaiting my next deployment. Tomorrow the planning would begin in earnest. Chapter 6. The long game years passed like missions, and missions passed like heartbeats. I became what they wanted, the perfect Apex-class Eversor. Mission after mission, target after target, each one completed with surgical precision. Chaos cultists on Forge Worlds, Genestealer Patriarch assassinations in Underhive depths, rogue psychers whose powers threatened entire systems, traitor guard officers selling Imperial positions to Xenos raiders. I killed them all without hesitation, without error, without mercy. By year 3, I'd completed 27 missions. Agent Wick no longer accompanied me. I'd earned enough trust to deploy solo with remote oversight only. The handlers had stopped watching so closely, stopped questioning my loyalty. I was reliable, predictable, the model operative they'd envisioned when creating the Apex program, which meant they'd stopped seeing the man learning their systems from the inside. Every deployment taught me something new. The communication protocols handlers used, the security clearances required for different facilities, the schedules of shipments, personnel rotations, command structures. I absorbed it all while playing the perfect weapon, cataloging information that might prove useful eventually. The other Apex candidates had advanced. Apex 4 and Apex 12 were now operational, deployed on their own missions. Apex 2 had died during enhancement, rejection cascade that turned their body into liquefied meat. Apex 8 had suffered psychological break during their 10th mission, killed their handler, and been terminated by contingency protocols built into their augmentations. I attended Apex 8's memorial service because refusing would have raised suspicions. watched as the Officio honored a failed experiment with all the ceremony reserved for genuine heroes. The handler spoke about sacrifice and duty, never mentioning that they'd triggered the kill switch themselves, that Apex-8 had been murdered by the organization they served for the crime of remembering humanity too clearly. Afterward, Shade 9 found me in the Memorial Garden, a sad little space on sublevel 20 where they'd planted real vegetation under artificial light. Still counting missions? They asked. I'd stopped lying to Shade 9 years ago. They were the only person in the facility who'd been honest with me. The only connection to truth in an organization built on deception. 31 now, and you still think you'll escape? No judgment in the question. Just curiosity. I know I will. Eventually. Shade 9's disguise field shimmered with what might have been sadness. Apex-8 thought the same. That's why they broke. Finally realized the trap had no exit. You're smarter than that, though. You'll play along longer, dig deeper, plan more carefully. But the ending is the same, Seven. We don't escape. We endure until we can't anymore. Then why are you still here? Because I'm a coward. Because after 47 years, 53 now, I've forgotten what else I could be. The missions are all I have left. At least they give purpose to the horror. They turned to leave, then paused. Be careful, Seven. The new handlers are reviewing asset psychology profiles. They're looking for signs of potential defection. Your performance is too perfect. Perfect is suspicious. They vanished into the shadows, leaving me alone with the artificial flowers and the weight of their warning. Too perfect. I'd been so focused on building trust through flawless execution that I'd forgotten. The Officio specialized in paranoia. Perfect loyalty looked identical to perfect deception if you studied it closely enough. I needed to make a mistake. Something small, survivable, that would seem human rather than calculated. Show vulnerability that would make them think I was breaking down naturally, not planning methodically. Mission 32 provided the opportunity. The target was a corrupt cardinal on the shrine world of Blessed Promise, a man who'd been selling ecclesiarchy relics to chaos collectors for decades. High profile, politically sensitive, requiring perfect discretion. The kind of mission the Officio assigned to test whether operatives could handle complexity beyond simple killing. I infiltrated during a massive religious festival, thousands of pilgrims crowding the cathedral district. The cardinal would be isolated during private prayers, my window for elimination. Standard approach, standard execution, standard extraction. Except I hesitated. Not because I doubted the cardinal's guilt. The evidence was overwhelming. Not because I felt mercy. The combat stims prevented that. I hesitated because I let myself see the pilgrims, really see them, as people rather than obstacles. Families traveling light years for spiritual comfort, children touching sacred relics with wonder, old men and women praying for salvation before death. These were the people I'd been protecting through 31 missions. These were the innocents the Imperium served, the reason assassination was necessary, and I'd stopped seeing them as anything except tactical considerations, collateral to avoid, witnesses to eliminate, complications to circumvent. The hesitation lasted perhaps 2 seconds. Not enough to compromise the mission, but enough that the surveillance augurs registered the delay, flagged it for handler review, marked it as potential psychological instability. I completed the mission perfectly. The cardinal died, the relics were recovered. The pilgrims never knew an Imperial assassin walked among them, but the hesitation remained in my record, a small crack in the perfect facade. Agent Wick summoned me for psychological evaluation. Standard procedure after 40 missions, they claimed, though I'd only completed 32. The lie was obvious. They suspected something, but couldn't identify what. The evaluation would probe for defection indicators, mission fatigue, augmentation complications. I prepared by remembering Jonathan Wick. Not the augmented weapon, not the calculating planner, but the man who'd loved Helen. Let that memory fill my mind. Let genuine emotion color my responses, because the best lies were built on truth, and my love for her was the truest thing I still possessed. The evaluation chamber was clinical. White walls, harsh lighting, uncomfortable chair. The evaluator was a thin man with augmetic eyes and a voice like grinding metal, probably a former operative himself, broken down enough to serve in administration. Apex-7. Your mission performance remains exemplary. Yet we've detected anomalies in your psychological profile, specifically increasing engagement with mission context beyond tactical necessity. He consulted his data slate. You observed pilgrims on Blessed Promise for 17 minutes beyond operational requirements. You've been accessing archived news reports about worlds you've operated on. You requested information about Officio 7 6 times in the past year. All true. All deliberate, building a pattern of behavior that suggested natural degradation rather than calculated planning. I remember why I do this, I said carefully. The people I protect, the Imperium I serve. Is that wrong? It's inefficient. Emotional engagement reduces operational effectiveness by an average of 12%. The Apex program is designed to eliminate such inefficiencies. I'm still completing every mission perfectly, for now. But psychological degradation follows predictable patterns. Emotional engagement leads to hesitation. Hesitation leads to mistakes. Mistakes lead to asset failure. He leaned forward. We can help you, 7. Additional conditioning, chemical regulation to suppress emotional response, minor adjustments that will extend your operational lifespan considerably. Chemical lobotomy, that's what he was offering. Turn me into a true weapon, conscienceless and perfect. Burn out the last remnants of Jonathan Wick and leave only Apex-Seven. I don't want that, I said. Honestly, because this was a moment where truth served better than lies. What you want is irrelevant. The Imperium's needs will be better served by an operative who understands what he's fighting for. You want perfect execution without emotional burden? Use servitors. The Apex program exists because human judgment is valuable, because tactical flexibility requires consciousness, because I stopped, realizing I'd said too much, shown too much understanding of the program's true purpose. The evaluator studied me for a long moment, then surprisingly he smiled. You're right, that's exactly why the Apex program exists. Human consciousness without human weakness. We haven't found that balance yet. You all degrade eventually, but you're lasting longer than most, 7. 32 missions and you're just now showing cracks. Then let me continue as I am. If degradation is inevitable, at least let me degrade naturally rather than accelerating it with conditioning. He considered this, made notes, finally nodded. Approved, but you'll undergo monthly evaluations from this point forward. We need to monitor your decline closely so we can determine optimal intervention timing. The goal isn't to preserve Jonathan Wick. He's dead. The goal is to maximize Apex-Seven's operational lifespan. I left the evaluation chamber with the knowledge that I'd bought time but increased scrutiny. Monthly evaluations meant monthly opportunities to expose my planning. I'd have to be more careful, more subtle, more patient. But patience was something I had in abundance. By year 5, I'd completed 40 missions. Apex 4 died during mission 27, ambushed by Eldar Rangers who'd predicted his approach. Apex 12 developed tumors from augmentation incompatibility and was euthanized before the cancer spread to brain tissue. New candidates had been recruited, but the program was struggling. Only 3 successful integrations from 14 attempts. The Officio was reconsidering the entire initiative, which meant I'd become invaluable. The prototype that proved the concept was viable. Too valuable to lose, too necessary to risk. That value was protection, but also leverage. I used it carefully. I need access to mission archives, I told my current handler during a post-mission debriefing. Understanding historical operations would improve my tactical planning. Denied. Archives are classified above your clearance level. Then increase my clearance. I've completed 40 missions without significant complications. I've earned trust, the handler hesitated. Consulted with superiors. Eventually, incredibly, they agreed. Limited archive access, heavily monitored, but access nonetheless. The first crack in their information security. Granted, because my perfect service record made them think I was loyal. I spent months reviewing archives, learning the Officio's history. Not just recent operations, but ancient missions dating back to the Great Crusade. Patterns emerged. How the organization operated, how it maintained security, how it handled internal threats. Most importantly, I learned about the fail-safes. Every enhanced operative had kill switches built into their augmentations. Neural detonators that could be triggered remotely, reducing a rogue asset to brain-dead meat in microseconds. The triggers were held by senior handlers, updated weekly, with redundant backup systems ensuring no operative could survive betrayal. I'd suspected as much. Having it confirmed was simultaneously crushing and liberating, because now I knew what needed to be defeated. Not guards or security systems, but the kill switch in my own brain. Remove that and I became truly dangerous. Leave it and any escape attempt would end in instant death. Year 6 brought mission 47. I was close to the original 50-mission retirement threshold, though I knew now it meant nothing. But I'd learned something valuable. The Officio did occasionally transfer operatives to long-term deep cover missions, assignments that lasted years or decades, where the asset essentially retired from active service while maintaining nominal loyalty. It wasn't freedom, but it was closer than active deployment. I began positioning myself for such an assignment, specialized in infiltration missions that required extended preparation, demonstrated ability to maintain cover identities for months, built a reputation as the operative you deployed when you needed someone embedded long-term rather than extracted quickly. Shade 9 noticed. They always noticed. "You're planning something," they said during one of our rare conversations. "Something beyond escape. You're too calm for someone who's been counting missions for 6 years. Maybe I've accepted reality, like you suggested." "No, you've never accepted anything in your life. That's why you're still you after 6 years when most of us forget our original names." Their disguise field flickered with concern. "Whatever you're planning, Seven, the Officio has survived 10,000 years by preventing exactly what you're attempting. Smarter operatives than either of us have tried. None succeeded. Then I'll be the first. Or you'll be the next memorial service I attend while pretending to care." They sighed. "You asked me once why I'm still here. The real answer. Because I watched friends try to escape, watched them die in ways that made me grateful for the kill switch's mercy. The Imperium doesn't let weapons walk away, Seven. Ever. Then I won't walk away. I'll take what's mine by force." Shade 9 actually laughed, a sound without humor. "And what's yours, Helen? She's been on Officio-7 for 6 years. She's probably married now, started a family, built a life you're not part of. Even if you reached her, even if you survived the escape somehow, what makes you think she'd want the monster you've become?" The words hurt because they carried truth. 6 years was a lifetime. Helen had mourned Jonathan Wick and moved on because that's what the living did. The man she'd loved was dead, and the weapon wearing his face was a stranger. But I'd spent 6 years becoming something unprecedented, an Eversor who remembered love, a weapon with purpose, an assassin who chose his targets. I'd survived when others broke, adapted when others degraded, learned when others forgot. And I discovered something the Officio had never intended. Their own archives contained the tools to defeat them. Buried in historical records was a mission from M36, the Age of Apostasy. An Eversor named Designation Zero had gone rogue after discovering the kill switch technology. He'd managed to disable his own neural detonator using a combination of electromagnetic pulse and surgical self-modification. Had survived for 3 months before being terminated by overwhelming force. But he'd survived. Proved it was possible. Left records describing the process before his death. I memorized every detail. Practiced the electromagnetic pulse generation using my own augmentations. Studied the neural architecture I'd need to surgically modify. Prepared for the most dangerous operation imaginable. Removing the kill switch while staying alive and sane. Year 7 arrived. Mission 50 completed. I'd reached the original threshold, though the retirement review was predictably postponed. Operational necessity, they claimed. Perhaps after 60 missions, I didn't argue. Didn't complain. Just accepted the next assignment with perfect compliance, because Mission 51 would deploy me to a remote research station for extended infiltration. 6 months minimum. Enough time to attempt the impossible. Enough isolation that my absence wouldn't immediately trigger alerts. Enough freedom to try becoming human again. The transport to the research station departed in 48 hours. I spent that time saying quiet goodbyes to the few connections I'd maintained. Shade 9 accepted my thanks for 6 years of honesty. The memorial garden received one final visit. My quarters were cleaned and organized with the knowledge I might never return. On the last night before deployment, I sat alone and thought about Helen. Not the memories I'd clung to for 7 years, but the reality Shade 9 had described. She'd moved on, built a new life, probably forgotten the man who'd promised her retirement and delivered disappearance instead. I was chasing a ghost, planning an impossible escape to reach a woman who wouldn't recognize me, wouldn't want me, wouldn't love the monster I'd become. But I'd been John Wick once, and John Wick always finished what he started, even if it killed him. Chapter 7. The Man Who Came Back. The Inquisitorial Command Center on Officio-7 was a fortress disguised as a cathedral. White stone and golden domes that hid void shields and orbital defense batteries. I walked through its main entrance at dawn, carrying Helen's data slate and no weapons, wearing simple pilgrim's robes over my augmented body. The guards detained me immediately, scanned my biometrics and their systems screamed alerts, wanted fugitive, rogue officio asset, extreme threat level. Within minutes, I was kneeling in a detention cell, magna cuffs restraining hands that could have torn through the walls. But I'd come to surrender, not fight. Inquisitor Lord Vex arrived 3 hours later. He was ancient, possibly original Crusade era with rejuvenate treatments, his power armor covered in purity seals and the symbols of 100 campaigns. When he entered my cell, even my enhanced instincts screamed danger. This was a man who'd killed demons and traitor primarchs, someone whose authority was absolute. Apex-Seven, he said, his voice like grinding stone. The Officio wants you dead or retrieved. They filed formal requests demanding we deliver you immediately. Give me one reason I shouldn't comply. I slid Helen's data slate across the floor with my cuffed hands. Because Inquisitor Kara has been operating an illegal enhancement program outside Officio protocols, creating augmented assets without High Lord approval. The Ordo Sicarius has exceeded its authority and threatened Imperial stability. Vex picked up the slate, scanned it. His expression didn't change, but I saw his eyes widen fractionally. Where did you get this? A friend compiled it from public archives. 7 years of evidence proving the Apex program was unauthorized, the retirement promises were fraudulent, the selection process violated multiple Imperial decrees. Your colleague has been playing God with human lives. And you want me to believe this? From a rogue asset trying to save his own life? I don't care if you believe it. Investigate independently. You'll find the same evidence. The Officio is corrupt, and I'm proof. I leaned forward as much as the restraints allowed. Kill me if you want. I've made peace with that, but shut down the Apex program first. Save the others who haven't been transformed yet. Vex studied me with eyes that had seen too much. Finally, he smiled, a predator's smile. You're telling the truth, I can see it. Which is fascinating, because Eversor assets are supposed to be incapable of this level of independent thought. He activated his Vox. Secure this facility, lock down all outgoing communications. I want Inquisitor Kara detained immediately if she attempts to enter Ophelia's 7th system. He turned back to me. You've started something dangerous, Apex-Seven. The Officio doesn't respond well to internal investigation. They'll deploy assets to silence you, to destroy this evidence, to eliminate everyone involved, including the woman who compiled this data slate. My blood ran cold. You know about Helen? I know everything about you. 23 years as an independent operator. Relationship with Helen Davenport. Recruitment by Inquisitor Kara. 7 years of service. Current fugitive status. He tapped the data slate. This evidence is thorough, but it's also circumstantial. I need testimony. Direct witness to the crimes described. I'll testify. And be immediately killed by Officio loyalists. No, I need leverage. He paused, calculating. I need the Officio to reveal its own corruption publicly, which means I need bait they can't resist. He meant me. Use me to draw out the Officio's response. Document their illegal actions. Expose the crimes in a way that couldn't be suppressed. Make my death meaningful by ensuring it destroyed the organization that created me. What do you need me to do? I asked. Survive. Long enough for the Officio to make mistakes trying to eliminate you. I'll provide protection, but it won't be complete. They're too good for that, so you'll fight. Kill any assets they send. Make them escalate until they deploy resources that prove their unauthorized operations. Vex's smile widened. You've been John Wick the assassin and Apex-Seven the weapon. Now you'll be John Wick the testimony, your very existence proving crimes too severe to ignore. He was making me bait, using Helen's evidence and my life to spring a trap on the Officio Assassinorum itself. It was ruthless, politically brilliant, and absolutely guaranteed to get me killed. I agreed immediately. The Officio responded within 12 hours. Shade 9 came first, alone as I'd predicted, taking the bounty contract that promised retirement. They found me in the Cathedral District, where Vex had positioned me deliberately exposed. Hello, Seven, Shade 9 said, their disguise field flickering with what might have been regret. You made them offer retirement. Real retirement. I have to take this chance. I know. I would too. We fought in the plaza before Martyr's Cathedral. 2 enhanced killers trading death while horrified pilgrims fled. Shade 9 had 53 years of experience. I had 7 years of brutal efficiency and nothing left to lose. I won by using their own tactics, letting them believe they'd cornered me, then reversing the trap. My neurogauntlet crushed their windpipe before they could trigger their own kill switch to deny me victory. They died gurgling curses about the retirement that would never come. I knelt beside them as life faded. I'm sorry. You deserved better than this. We all deserved better. Their last words before the light left their eyes. Vex's agents recorded everything. Shade 9's body proved the Officio had authorized assassination of their own asset, a serious crime by Imperial law. First piece of evidence, Apex-4 came next, deployed overtly despite the risks. The fight demolished 3 city blocks and left 47 pilgrims dead as collateral damage. I killed Apex-4 by forcing them into explosive overload. Their own augmentations turned into weapons against them. More evidence of unauthorized enhancement beyond legal parameters. Apex. 12 died 3 days later, ambushing me in the archives where Helen worked. I led them away from civilians, fought them in the sub-basements where their death wouldn't cause collateral damage. The architectural damage revealed illegal Assassinorum caches hidden beneath a shrine world. Absolute proof of unauthorized operations. After Apex 12, they escalated. Sent an actual Eversor, not an Apex variant, but a true berserker unleashed on Officio with orders to kill me regardless of collateral damage. The Eversor lasted 8 minutes before I detonated its combat stim reservoirs, turning it into a chemical bomb that only destroyed itself. An Eversor deployment on a shrine world without inquisitorial approval. Vex had his smoking gun. But they weren't done. Inquisitor Kara herself arrived with a strike force of stormtroopers and specialized assets, attempting to extract or eliminate me through overwhelming force. Vex had been waiting for exactly this, the moment when desperation pushed the Officio into direct illegal action. The battle turned the Cathedral District into a war zone, stormtroopers against inquisitorial forces, with me at the center fighting everyone who tried to reach me. I killed 17 before Kara's assets surrounded me, disabled my enhancements with EMP, and prepared for execution. Then Vex deployed his own assets, Deathwatch Space Marines, assigned to his service, who could neutralize Officio operatives without political complications. The battle shifted immediately. Stormtroopers couldn't fight Astartes. Kara's specialized assets couldn't match warriors who'd fought Xenos horrors for centuries. I watched from my knees, disabled but conscious, as Inquisitor Kara was forced to surrender. Watched as Vex's forces secured evidence that would destroy her career and expose the Apex program completely. Watched as everything I'd fought for came to fruition. But the cost. 47 pilgrims dead, 3 city blocks destroyed, Sanctuary Prime's peace shattered, Helen's daughter having nightmares about the monsters that fought in her city, all because John Wick had escaped, survived, and forced a reckoning. Vex approached me as medics worked to repair the EMP damage to my augmentations. You're free to go. Your testimony and the evidence is sufficient. The Officio will face inquisitorial review. The Apex program will be dismantled, and Inquisitor Kara will answer for her crimes. What about the other candidates? The people being enhanced right now? We'll recover those we can. The others, he shook his head. Some transformations are too advanced to reverse. They'll be given a choice. Service under proper inquisitorial oversight or mercy death. Most will choose death. The enhancements are too agonizing to live with willingly. I thought of the people like me, stolen from their lives and rebuilt into weapons, who'd now choose death rather than continued existence. The Apex program's final victims, those who couldn't accept what they'd become. And me? I asked. Legally, you're free. The charges against you are dismissed given the circumstances. Your kill switch removal was self-defense against illegal detention. Your actions since escaping prevented wider harm. Vex studied me with those ancient eyes. But freedom is complicated for someone like you. You're augmented beyond human baseline, trained in assassination, and known throughout the Officio. Every enemy of the Imperium will want your skills. Every faction will try to recruit you. You'll never be safe, I know. But at least I'll be free. Will you? He gestured toward the cathedral where Helen stood watching from a distance, Sophia clutching her hand. Because freedom means accepting that the life you wanted is impossible. That woman has a husband, a family, a peace you can only destroy by remaining near her. Loving her means leaving her alone. Can you do that? The question cut deeper than any weapon. I'd spent 7 years fighting to reach Helen, only to discover that reaching her meant staying away, that the greatest act of love was absence. I can do that, I said. I will do that. I approached Helen one final time, knowing it would be the last. Marcus was with her now, a good man with kind eyes who'd given her everything I'd promised. He didn't recognize me as a threat, just saw someone who'd saved the city from worse violence. "Thank you," Marcus said, extending his hand. "My wife told me you were involved in exposing the corruption. You're a hero." I shook his hand and felt how human it was. No augmentation, no enhancement, just flesh and bone and warmth. Everything I'd lost, not a hero. Just a man trying to make things right. I looked at Helen. "I'm leaving. Going somewhere I can't hurt anyone. You'll never see me again." "John," she started. "No, you were right. I was supposed to stay dead. You deserve the life you built. Don't let me haunt it." I knelt before Sophia, met her frightened eyes. "Your mother is the best person I ever knew. Take care of her, okay?" Sophia nodded, still not understanding why the scary man made her mother cry. I stood and walked away, out of the cathedral district, out of Sanctuary Prime, out of the life Helen Davenport had built. Behind me I heard her weeping, not for the man I'd been, but for the monster I'd become. Tears for John Wick, who died 7 years ago and refused to stay buried. Inquisitor Lord Vex found me 3 days later at a pilgrim hostel, preparing to leave Officio Assassinorum forever. "I have a proposal," he said. "The Inquisition always needs specialists, people who can operate outside normal parameters, complete missions too sensitive for standard assets. The pay is terrible, the work is horrible, and you'll probably die within 5 years. But its purpose, its meaning, it's better than drifting aimlessly until enemies or age catch up with you." What would I do? Hunt the Imperium's enemies, not as a mindless weapon, but as a thinking operative with full authority. Chaos cultists, Genestealer covens, traitors and heretics. The work you did before, but legitimately. Protecting the innocent you once met at arms dealer meets and kill houses. He smiled slightly. "John Wick, the inquisitorial agent, has a certain appeal, doesn't it?" It did. Purpose without chains, mission without manipulation, the chance to use what the Officio had made me into for something genuine rather than political games. I accept. On one condition. Name it. Helen and her family are never approached, investigated, or involved in inquisitorial business. They live peaceful lives, forever. Or I walk away. Vex considered this, finally nodded. "Agreed. They're civilians. They stay civilian. You have my word." We shook hands, a human gesture between monsters pretending to civilization, starting a partnership built on mutual respect and practical necessity. That was 3 years ago. Since then, I've operated across the Segmentum Pacificus, hunting threats before they spread. Chaos covens shattered, gene-stealer cults burned, traitors executed, all in service of the Imperium that stole my life, because that stolen life now served a purpose worth living for. I've never returned to Officio Assassinorum, never checked on Helen, never contacted Marcus or watched Sophia grow up. They live in peace because I stay away, and that's enough. Some nights, when missions are complete and I'm alone, I remember the Continental. Remember Winston's ancient wisdom and Marcus's friendship. Remember a time when I was just John Wick, skilled assassin who thought he could retire. But that man is dead, died 7 years ago in an Officio enhancement tank. What remains is something else, part John Wick, part Apex-Seven, part something new that the Imperium never intended to create. A weapon that chose its wielder, an assassin who picked his targets, an Eversor who remembered what humanity meant and fought to protect it, even though he'd lost his own. They took everything from me, my love, my future, my very self, made me into a monster and expected grateful service. Instead, they created their conscience. Their weapon turned inward, eliminating the corruption they refused to see. I am John Wick. I am Apex-Seven. I am the Imperium's avenging angel and its greatest mistake, and I finish what I start. Even if it takes forever, even if it costs everything, because that's what John Wick does.